I've waited a long time to make this video. Welcome! My name is George Molo, and this is the premiere episode of George the Giant Slayer. Before I dive into the latest political and entertainment news and then jump back to the latest pop cultural events, I wanted to share a little bit about myself. Now, some of you may already know me. You've read my super chats over the last 24 months. Others have seen me in live streams over the last few weeks, and many more I've become good friends with. Well, we've had some great conversations and some insightful debates, and we've always walked away cracking up laughing. I'm an author, a businessman, and a kidnapped survivor, not a victim, a victor. I faced down my monster at the age of 7, the man who kidnapped me and took me high into the Greek mountains near the Bulgarian border and held me there and tortured me for a year before my family rescued me. I confronted and faced down my giant, the man who would call himself my father. You know, in that year that he held me, I couldn't speak any English. I'd be punished anytime I did. And when I was returned to the U.S., I'm coming through the customs at the airport, and going down like these semicircular stairs. There were these huge plate glass windows where I could see my family at the bottom of them. They had signs. Some were smiling, some were crying, some were jumping. And I kept thinking, what am I going to tell them? And there was also this strange feeling that I hadn't seen them. They felt comfortable, but at the same time like strangers. So I'm walking down there. They started hugging and crying and kissing and doing it. I'm just sitting here saying the one word I knew, cheeseburger. Cheeseburger. Cheeseburger at that moment was America. It embodied everything to me. I mean, they must have thought I was starving, but it was the only word I knew. And, you know, thinking about that time, thinking about what I was thinking then, it was, as a kid, I was like, how am I here? You know, a little while ago, I was taken away. Right before that, my parents were married, then they got divorced. Then my father planted the seeds in my head of, hey, wouldn't you like to take an amazing summer vacation with your dad? But don't tell your mother, it's a surprise. Of course, I'd be like, Dad, yeah, I want to go. He's like, we're going to have a great time all summer. And then every weekend that I go to his place, all of a sudden I start seeing these huge steamer trunks start piling up in the house. Some were loaded with toys, others with hunting gear and rifles and shotguns, and others with fishing poles and footballs and baseballs and basketballs and soccer balls, a movie projector. I felt like the kid in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As time went on, I kept feeling weird because he kept saying, what do you think if we stay longer than the summer and the winter? Eventually, I told my mother. She confronted him. He said, it's in his imagination. He's not handling the divorce well. Of course, my mother went and checked. She went to the passport offices. She checked every airlines, every ticketing agency. No one had any tickets in my name, no passports in my name, nothing. So the day comes, she's driving me to school, and I know this is the day. I kept saying, this is it. I'm not going to see you again. I'm in the car with her. I said, just take me home. She's like, you're going to be fine. You're going to have the best day ever in school. I'm going to pick you up after school. We're going to have a good dinner, and we're going to watch a movie, and you're going to put this out of your head. Nothing's going to happen to you today. He can't even pick you up. The lawyer sent a letter to the office. He can't even pick you up. I hug her goodbye, and I can just smell. My mom smelled like that unconditional love, like bread pudding and strawberries and peaches and cream and apple pie with vanilla and whipped cream. And just, I was trying to hold on to that scent because I was like, this is it. This is the last time. She kissed me goodbye. I went to class. My father picked me up a little bit later for a dentist appointment. We're driving towards the airport, and I'm sitting here thinking, how do I tell him I don't want to go? Because, again, there was something inside me that said, this is weird. This is wrong. Maybe it's the defiant part of my nature, or the stubborn part of my nature, or the inquisitive part. I didn't know back then. So he's like, look, if you really don't want to go with me and you want to go back, by the time we reach this shopping mall, it's called the Galleria. It's like 4 or 5 stores. He's like, by the time we reach it, if you want to turn around, you tell me, we'll turn around. So I'm like, oh, okay, I calmed down. But at the same time I was calm, I was like, I felt the electricity running through me, like I'm walking on eggshells in the car, and I'm waiting. So we're coming over the overpass, and we're driving up to it, and he's not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. Eventually we pass, and he's like, you should have told me. We would have turned around. I'm like, okay. He's like, no worries. This is when he started moving the goalpost. When we get to this next place over here, and we pass that, then the next, until we're at the airport, then the lobby, then the lounge, then the gate, then we're on the plane. He's like, there's nothing to worry about. You're with your dad. What's the matter? Anytime you want, we can come back. Then we were in Amsterdam, then we were in London, and then we were in Greece. Before I could even formulate the thought, it's like I started to think I want to go home. It's like almost in slow motion. He squeezed down on my hand. It's like right there on the arm. And it was the first time that he had ever touched me without it being loving, where it was just this cold iron no. And that's when my year of hell began. And if I could overcome those beatings, if I could survive and I can succeed, you can accomplish anything. And together, we can take on and take down the worst giants who have demented dreams. And when I mean take on and take down the worst giants, I mean without violence. Violence is for a lazy mind. Violence is for a despairing heart, a broken spirit, and an apathetic soul. You are the hero. Your mind is your sword. We can go after so many giants by using our minds, our intellect, research, facts, truth, humor, and ridicule. And combine all those, we shine a great big light on it. Because right now we're living in a time where social justice warriors are driving the digital planes, romancing blue check marks. We're living in a time where leftists are preaching the equality of universal misery for one and all. We're living in a time where pampered professors are pushing a perverted hatred of everything Western culture and America, while proselytizing about multiculturalism. We're living in a time where victimhood on college campuses and in corporate boardrooms is a cash and carry commodity for the mainstream media and a hedge fund for Hollywood executives who are slowly crashing their financial bottom lines by assassinating their legendary heroes, by injecting a noxious, cancerous political agenda into every story arc, slowly crippling their big tentpole movie series. What do you do in such a time? What do you do in a time where DC lobbyists and representatives are nothing but corrupt Dems and sellout rhinos? What do? You create a whole new generation of defiant giant slayers. And if you want to do that with me, we're going to have a lot of fun. One of the questions I'm always asked is, how does a 7-year-old survive? And I always tell them it was this idea of America, the rocket's red glare and the 4th of July and cheeseburgers and my grandmother's stories of survival and World War II and Saturday morning Super Friends and Kung Fu Theater and Snoopy and my band of brothers. I didn't have comics while I was in Greece, but they were all up here in my head. But Superman and Batman and Captain America never left me. They helped to fortify my spirit, sharpen my wits, and bolster my defiance. They were like another beating heart in my chest. They kept me going. They said, you never back down, you never bow down, you never give in, you never give up, always forward. Now, I promise to bring you some amazing content. I promise to cover pop cultural events where we'll talk about the temporary stranglehold that the left has on culture and politics. And then I will provide you with political analysis where we dive deep into the DC swamp, where I'm going to put my hands in the mud, lift up the rocks, then pull apart every cobwebbed, rotten tree trunk and find out what skeletons live there and what shadows lurk behind. We're going to find out what is their game plan, what is their end game, and how we are going to stop them. And when we want to have a good time, we're going to discuss some of Hollywood's antics. Then we're going to review some movies, both old and new, and look at all new TV series coming on. If any of this sounds enjoyable to you, if any of this is enticing you, then join me, because I'm building a home, your new home, the front line of fun and freedom. And now for some pop culture news highlights from last week. William Shatner, at the age of 90, took a 10-minute flight on Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket. Think about that for a second. Captain Kirk actually went to space. And they say art imitates life. But every once in a while, life imitates art. And Shatner's journey from the ground to the heavens began a long time ago in a Desilu studio lot in Culver City, California, on a makeshift Enterprise as our beloved Captain Kirk. And last week, he voyaged to the undiscovered country. Not only that, he officially became the oldest man alive to fly above the Kármán line. Now, the Kármán line is the boundary between Earth and outer space. He brushed across the atmosphere and experienced weightlessness. Think about that. I have the video and I'm going to share it with you at the end of this piece. Shatner was joined by 3 crew members: Audrey Powers, a former space station flight controller, and a current Blue Origin vice president, and 2 paying customers: Chris Boschheisen, a former NASA space mission architect and a co-founder of Planet Labs, and Guy DeVry, a software entrepreneur. On Shatner's return trip back to Earth, he continuously raved about the transformational experience of space travel before they landed in the West Texas desert. And when he got out of the capsule and walked down the stairs, who was the first person to greet him? But none other than Jeff Bezos. Now, here's a little piece of entertainment nugget news for you. Bezos is a big Trek fan. He's one of the original Trekkies, so much so that he played a cameo role as an extraterrestrial in the movie Star Trek and Beyond. But what was most fascinating about the trip was what Shatner had to say. When he spoke, you could feel the aura and the majesty about how the trip impacted him. You could taste the enthusiasm with a spoon, as if you were eating a bowl of peanut butter fudge chocolate ice cream, with caramel and whipped cream and candied walnuts, maraschino cherries, and a heaping helping of hot fudge sundae sauce. But instead of me telling you all about it, let's hear the man himself in his own words.
This comforter of blue that we have around, we think, oh, that's blue sky. And then suddenly you shoot through it all of a sudden, as though you whip off a sheet off you when you're asleep, and you're looking into blackness, into black ugliness. And you look down, and there's the blue down there, and the black up there, and it's just, there is Mother and Earth and comfort, and is there death? I don't know. Is that death? Is that the way death is? Whoop! And it's gone. Jesus. It was so moving to me. This experience has been something unbelievable.
What more can we say about Captain Kirk? Congratulations to you, sir. Boldly going where no man has gone before.
God.
Weightlessness. Oh, Jesus.
Kármán line.
No description can equal this. Weightlessness.
This is nuts!
Oh, my God.
This is
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm telling you.
Holy hell.
Oh, my goodness me. Oh, wow. I can't believe this.
And now for some more good news closer to home. I'm sure you know about the Chappelle controversy unfolding over the last 8 days. And unless you've been living in a cave, and that's okay if you have, here it is again in a nutshell. Dave Chappelle released his new comedy special, The Closer. It was developed by Cutie's producer Netflix. On the day of its release, a Netflix employee, a software engineer who's also trans and an activist, started a Twitter storm. They literally had a romper room meltdown. Well, those tweets engulfed the entire social media for about 24 hours. Now, some of it was negative towards Netflix for supporting Dave Chappelle and saying that he created negative content towards the trans community and the LGBTQ plus community. But there were some good discussions that were had about freedom, free speech versus cancel culture. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to review an article. I want to review an article here so we can see what exactly was said in the tweet. Tara Field, October 6, 2021. I work at Netflix. Yesterday, we launched another Chappelle special where he attacks the trans community and the very validity of transness, all while trying to pit us against other marginalized groups. You're going to hear a lot of talk about offense. We are not offended. What is important about this issue? What's important is, who is Dave Chappelle? Why is he being defended by Netflix? Is he being defended by Netflix? Was this employee of Netflix, were they fired for who they were, how they lived, what they tweeted, or what they believed? And did an American company near the end of the 2021 stand up for their regulations and principles? We're about to find out. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to analyze how the mainstream media, at the Verge article, is framing this controversy. So we begin with the headline. Netflix suspends trans employee who tweeted about Dave Chappelle's special. Bullshit. That's not what happened, as we're about to find out. That really should read, Netflix suspends employee. And then you will go down and you'll find in the meat of the article what it was really about. We go to the first paragraph and we can see right there, it's just confirming the headline. Netflix has suspended a trans employee who tweeted about Dave Chappelle's comedy special, The Closer. We've already read the tweet. So now to find what really happened, we go to the second sentence of the second paragraph. Netflix then suspended Field along with 2 other employees for trying to attend a director level meeting they were not invited to. There you go. What does that tell you to? That tells you that they crashed through their boss's office while they were having a quarterly meeting with their top 500 employees, and they were suspended. Simple. What do you think would happen to you or I if we crashed through a boss's office during a quarterly meeting? I can tell you what. We'd hear 3 words. You're fired right before they hit the buzzer on the phone and said, security. We'd be frog marched right out of there before we had time to pack. But again, we're living at the tail end of 2021. And this is the first time an American company in years has treated everybody, it seems, equally. Because for the longest time, we've seen that there are 2 different classes of citizens, those on the left and everyone else. On the left, they have freedom, and everyone else, whether you're an independent, a moderate, a greenie, a libertarian, a conservative, GOP, MAGA, Trump, whatever, are given their freedoms as they're allotted to them by whatever city or state or company they work for. The left can do whatever it chooses if you're for the left. You can dox, commit violence, mayhem, slander, harm, shame, humiliate. You'll end up with a book deal on talk show circuits, running a nonprofit with a bucket of cash. You do the same exact thing on the right, you're going to be canceled, fired, lose your job, lose every access to every account online, and be shamed through the media for 24/7 every day for as long as it takes till you bow down. Now, we're going to figure out exactly what they're trying to do here with this article. Because one of the things I think they're doing is they're trying to create a straw man argument by slowly piecing together the head, the torso, and build the limbs. So we're going to go here into the third paragraph. In a statement emailed to The Verge, Netflix spokesperson spoke back against the idea that Field was suspended for tweeting. So right there, it confirms the second paragraph facts. They were not suspended for being who they were or for having the beliefs they had and for tweeting. So now we're going to see what the writer is thinking about. What is he attempting to frame? What is he attempting to stitch together? I think in this fourth paragraph, he's attempting to stitch together the limbs for the straw man. They state here, the special has sparked significant controversy inside of Netflix. Shortly after it came out, employees started asking pointed questions about whether or not trans people were included in the decision to air the special and where the company draws a line between commentary and transphobia. Now think about that for a second. They're wanting to put Netflix in a corner where they say, are you actually asking your 12,000 plus employees when you're making a thriller, a live action packed film, or a horror show, or a World War II documentary, or another comedy special, are you asking each and every one of them what they think about its relevancy, whether they got to review each and every line? Of course not. The writer is boxing Netflix in here, so their answer has to be no, so then they can build their straw man and then frame it in a frame of bias. Look at this company. It is biased and hateful towards the trans community. Well, that's all irrelevant and full of it. So let's continue further. You can see how the straw man is slowly being built. On October 8th, Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos responded to the questions in an internal email. It never feels good when people are hurting, especially our colleagues. He wrote, "You should also be aware that some talent may join third parties in asking us to remove the show in the coming days, which we are not going to do," close quotes. Now, we get to the meat of the story. We've already talked about the employee. The employee was suspended for barging into the boss's office on October 8th. Later on October 12th, the suspension was lifted for all three employees and they were brought back. Now we come back to Netflix. They stood on their principles, then they retreated. But where's their position on Dave Chappelle? We now know they are standing firm in defending him. And why is Dave Chappelle so important to defend? Comedians are the last line of defense in a free society when no one can make fun of anyone or any event or any group or any crisis or anything that makes us uncomfortable. We have more serious troubles than we can even imagine. You know, a long time ago, we used to have conversations in our country. Two people of opposing views, of opposing ideological camps could sit across from each other and have a conversation being a doorway in which both agreed to open and create a bridge to share ideas across with one another. Today, there's no doorway. There's just a huge wall where everyone's throwing bricks or stones or bats or knives or whatever they can get their hands on to damage, destroy, and hurt the other person. Dave Chappelle is not a comic. He's a comedian. He's not Gallagher with his huge hammer coming down and splatting, watermelon and cheesecake and spraying juices and seeds all over the audience and laughing while his hair jumps up and down. That's not Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is a comedian. Chappelle is a satirist. He has his finger on the pulse of the culture of the country. He knows the things that make you question yourself. He knows what agitates you. He knows deep down inside what you want to talk about, but you're afraid to, with your friends, with your coworkers, with your families, and some with even their spouses. And that's what he does. He came out on stage, and I'm going to butcher it right now. And one of his first lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, was, it's like, "Welcome, everybody. I'm rich and famous. And I've had one hell of a year. I can't even imagine how it was for you." He was immediately bonding with transparency with everyone, saying, "I have all of this privilege that I've worked my ass off for, and that's mine, and I completely own. But I get access to many things you don't. And if my year was bad, I can't even begin to imagine what yours was like." So what is he saying right there? One of the things Chappelle does is he unmasks us. And when we do that, we feel vulnerable. But at the same time, he uses it with wit, his intellect and insight, and makes us laugh. It makes us self-deprecate and look at ourselves and go, wow, why did he exaggerate that statement he just made? He exaggerated that to show us how out of balance things are, whether it's about the government or the media or Hollywood or society or a particular minority group or a particular ethnic group. Everyone is fair game to a comedian. And that's why they are so important. He walked into that auditorium like Muhammad Ali, like a champ, and knocked that audience out in less than 10 rounds. Netflix standing behind him is one of the best news that we've heard in a long time. And this is a good place because the rest of the article, I'm not going to go through it as I've read it already. It's just a bunch of, how shall I put it? The rest of the article goes into Netflix trying to cover its ass, both for suspending the employer originally and then for retreating on it and then for defending Dave Chappelle. And then you have the trans community and the LGBTQ plus community who have rallied together, who are saying, we're going to boycott Netflix on October 20th and look at everything y'all have done. Then, of course, Netflix responds, says, look at all the content that we've produced for you, and yada, 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 yada. I want to leave you with one thing, which is Chappelle's last words. Last Thursday, to a sold-out crowd at the Hollywood Bowl, Dave Chappelle walked out and said, if this is what cancel culture is like, I love it. And you know what? That was a great place to close out the premiere episode of George the Giant Slayer. We had two positive stories. Captain Kirk takes flight and Dave Chappelle is still standing. I want you to watch those notifications over the next week, as I will be covering the DC Fandom 2021 event and their full slate of film releases over the next few years. Friday, Dune opens nationwide, so I'll be doing a movie review. And as always, I'll keep a weather eye on the DC swamp, and we'll see what policies they put out, whether they're there to help us or to hurt us today or in the future. I want to take a second to thank everyone who motivated and inspired me to create this channel. Thank you, my friends. You're my family, and it means the world to me. Now, if you enjoyed the video for today, smash that like button, share it with your friends, families, and coworkers, hit the subscribe, and leave your comment down below. And remember, never bow down, never bend the knee, firmly defiant. Step up, stand tall, and get busy living your best life now. Always